What if a corner of our world simply ceased to belong to Earth? Dive into Case File 02 as we unseal the Mediterranean Mirage of 142 BC, an ancient maritime anomaly that erased Rome's finest fleet, broke the minds of its investigators, and left behind a terrifying cosmic puzzle. In the winter of 142 BC, the Roman Republic stood as the undisputed, absolute hegemon of the known world. Carthage had been utterly destroyed 4 years prior. The Mediterranean sea lanes were clear, and the Republic's vital grain supply lines from Egypt and Sicily were functioning with clockwork perfection. Until the morning of November 11th. Logbooks recovered from coastal watchtowers in western Sicily describe an unprecedented atmospheric crisis. A perfectly flat, dense wall of opaque white mist materialized along the horizon, stretching from the jagged cliffs of Lilybaeum directly across the open water to the coast of modern-day Tunisia. It did not drift with the prevailing winter winds. It did not dissipate or burn away under the harsh glare of the midday sun. Witnesses on the coast describe the phenomenon not as standard water vapor, but as a solid, monolithic mass resembling polished chalcedony. Even more disturbing, as night fell, the barrier began emitting a faint, rhythmic internal luminescence, a pale, milky glow that pulsed to a slow, steady heartbeat deep beneath the waves. To the Roman Senate, this was not a mere weather anomaly. It was an intolerable, unnatural blockade cutting off Rome from her southern provinces. Consul Lucius Calpurnius Piso immediately ordered a punitive scouting expedition. 12 heavy, combat-ready triremes, fully manned by veteran legionnaires, and commanded by the highly decorated tribune Marcus Varro. Their orders were absolute: penetrate the shroud, chart its internal depth, and re-establish the Republic's dominion over the shipping lanes. On November 18th, under a clear morning sky, the fleet approached the barrier. Watchers on the Sicilian cliffs reported that the moment the flagship's brass bow pierced the white vapor, the entire 12-vessel formation vanished instantly from sight.
No sound returned across the water. No rhythm of the rowing master's drum. No oars splashing. No shouting. Only an absolute, dead silence that settled over the Mediterranean like a heavy shroud.
3 weeks after the disappearance of Tribune Varro's fleet, panic began to set in back in Rome. The price of grain skyrocketed, and the Senate demanded answers. Refusing to send another massive fleet blindly into the unknown, Consul Piso authorized a secondary, highly clinical tactical experiment. 3 small, agile scout ships, the Aquila, the Vesta, and the Neptunus, were deployed to the edge of the Chalcedony wall. This time, engineers attached massive iron-linked chains to the stern of each vessel, anchoring them firmly to heavy bronze winches bolted directly into the rocky shoreline of Sicily. The plan was simple and methodical. The ships would advance precisely 1 mile into the fog. If they encountered danger, or if the mist proved too thick, the shore crews would signal them back, or use the mechanical winches to physically drag the vessels backward out of the white void. At noon, the Aquila was the first to enter. For exactly 6 minutes, the iron chain unspooled smoothly into the fog, clinking rhythmically against the stone anchor pads. Then, without warning, the chain went completely taut. The bronze winches on the shore groaned under an immense, unnatural tension. The shore commanders ordered the crew to reverse the winch, but before the gears could turn, the heavy iron links began to vibrate violently.
Men who placed their hands on the chains reported that the metal felt ice cold, so cold that it tore the skin from their palms, and emitted a high-pitched metallic hum that mirrored the pulsing light of the fog.
Suddenly, the tension snapped. The iron chain didn't break at a weak link. It was cleanly, perfectly sheared, as if a razor-sharp blade of unimaginable scale had sliced through 3 inches of solid Roman iron in a single microsecond. When the remaining chain was reeled back onto the shore, the final link was cool to the touch and fused into a smooth, glassy puddle of molten metal. The Senate immediately banned all further maritime expeditions. The Mediterranean Mirage was declared sacré, accursed, and a total military quarantine was placed on the southern waters.
184 days passed. The Senate had officially declared the primary expedition lost to a sudden supernatural tempest and listed the 450 citizens as deceased. Then, on May 21st, 141 BC, the fog briefly pulsed with a brilliant, blinding flash of violet light. 3 hours later, 3 of the long-missing triremes drifted backward out of the White Wall, their hulls carried entirely by the passive coastal currents toward the Bay of Naples. Roman naval patrol boats intercepted the vessels with extreme caution, fearing a foreign ambush, a trap, or a catastrophic plague breakout. What the boarding parties found inside the silent hulls defied every rational law of the physical world.
The ships were physically immaculate. The cedar wood hulls showed absolutely no signs of 6 months of weathering, rot, or barnacle growth. The wood appeared as if it had been launched from the shipyards a mere few hours prior. Below deck, the cargo and stores were completely pristine. The amphorae of wine remained sealed and perfectly aged. The fresh water had not stagnated or grown foul, and the grain sacks were dry and completely free of mold or pests. But the men were gone. 450 Roman citizens, seasoned sailors and elite legionnaires who had survived the bloody siege of Carthage, had vanished without a single trace of violence. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood splatters on the cedar rowing benches, no weapons drawn or armor discarded. On the captain's table, inside the flagship's quarters, the operational ledger remained open, the ink completely dry. The final entry, scrawled by Tribune Varro in an erratic, trembling hand, read simply, "The stars have changed color. They are watching us from beneath the water. The rowers refuse to look up. We are adjusting our course toward the center." The most disturbing discovery, however, lay locked within the inner sanctum of the flagship's quarters, inside Varro's personal iron chest. Resting atop his military uniform was a singular object that did not originate from any known quarry or forge on Earth. It was a perfectly smooth, heavy tablet of deep, light-absorbing obsidian, precisely 6 inches in width, and completely cool to the touch. Its surface was entirely impervious to steel blades and iron hammers, yet it was intricately etched with microscopic, glowing silver geometric rings that pulsed in perfect unison with the distant fog. When Rome's most learned astronomers and mathematicians examined the etchings in a highly classified chamber, they realized the tablet was an incredibly sophisticated celestial chart. It mapped out a foreign planetary system with staggering mathematical accuracy, depicting a massive central star orbited by 7 distinct ringed celestial bodies. But the constellations surrounding this planetary system did not match the Mediterranean night sky. The North Star was entirely missing. The constellation of Orion was warped beyond recognition, stretched into an elongated predatory shape. The tablet mapped a sector of the deep,
ancient cosmos that human eyes had never seen from the surface of Earth. The Senate immediately went into an emergency, high-security closed session behind locked iron doors. By joint decree of the consuls, the 3 immaculate ghost ships were towed out to deep water by remote barges and burned to the waterline, their ashes scattered across the sea. The obsidian tablet was encased in thick sheets of lead, sealed with molten bronze, and buried deep beneath the foundations of the Temple of Saturn, its very existence systematically scrubbed from the official public annals of Rome.
The Mediterranean fog remained perfectly stationary for another 3 years, a silent white fortress on the water, before vanishing as suddenly as it had arrived on a Tuesday morning, leaving behind a deeply scarred republic that never again looked at the open sea with absolute confidence. Reality Index File 002 is now closed. To all Bureau analysts tuning in, what truly occurred inside the Chalcedony Wall? Did Tribune Varro's fleet navigate through a localized tear in space-time, exposing them to a different corner of the universe? Or did the crew willingly abandon their vessels after realizing the true cosmic scale of what lay on the other side? And what became of the anchor chain that was sheared cleanly by an unseen force? Submit your tactical assessment and historical theories in the comments below.
Stand by for the next declassification.